Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 47 of Inking Out Loud. For today's podcast, we're going to be wrapping up our read of Robert Jordan's A Crown of Swords, the 7th volume in the Wheel of Time. I'm your host, as always, Rob Santos, and I'm joined by my co-host, Drew McCaffrey.
How's it going, everybody?
And making another return to the podcast, his wife, Lauren McCaffrey. Lauren, what's up?
Hey, thanks for having me again.
No, thanks for being back. We've missed you since, at least I've missed you since we had you on Calamity, though. As of now, it's technically not true as we're recording this because the two of you have recorded an episode together in which I was not a part because I haven't read that subject.
Oh, Lauren
material.
was on Eye of the World, too.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God, she was. Look at me being forgetful. I'm a terrible friend. Of course, then again, in my defense, I had a nasty hangover the day after that one, if I remember correctly. Eye of the World Part 1, that's when I had the Glenfiddich, I think.
I think that sounds right, actually.
That was a hell of an episode. Anyway, thanks for coming back, Lauren.
Absolutely.
So, I'm ready to dive right into the book here, but first what we're going to do is we're going to give Drew the chance to recap everything that we've read up to this point. Drew, finish off this book for us, dude.
Yeah, so we read a little bit less than half of the book on this one, and most of this portion of the book takes place in Abu Dar, where there are four major kind of developments. The first is that the Wonder Girls discover the Kin, this organization that fosters runaways and washouts from the White Tower. The second is that Matt has a run-in with Tylin, which we will be discussing in depth.
A run-in.
Yeah. The third is that Nynaeve finally breaks her block and marries Lan. And the fourth is they fight the Golem and find the stash of Angreal and Tur Angreal, including the Bowl of the Winds. And then elsewhere, Perrin is sort of exiled, half in earnest and half orchestrated by Rand to Ghealdan to get Massima in line. Rand kind of goes through this depressive funk, finally comes out of it, has a bath, and then goes and makes use of his Taviran nature. He begins hammering out a deal with the Seafolk, and then he goes to deal with the rebels, Toram Ryatan's rebels in the countryside, where he runs into Padan Fain and is wounded once again, in the same spot on the side, this time by Fain's Shadar Logoth dagger. Samitsu saves Rand with the help of Damer Flynn, but cannot completely heal the wound. Rand then, in turn, sets off his invasion of Ilion and takes Ilion, chases Semael to Shadar Logoth, where Semael is killed by Mashadar. Rand balefires Leah, the maiden who was left behind back in Lord of Chaos, and Rand assumes the laurel crown, the Crown of Swords, at the end of this book.
Yeah, he does. And that's pretty much where we leave off, right? I will admit that I fell slightly short of my required reading this week. I read all the way up to the first page of the last chapter. I think it's the last chapter, A Crown of Swords.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is not to say I haven't read it a dozen, 2 dozen times before this, but as far as my required reading for this week goes, I managed to reach right at the very end. So my recollection of everything in this book is going to be excellent up until that last chapter, at which point it'll be mostly okay. It'll be pretty good still. But we didn't have an epilogue in this one, did we?
We did not.
Okay.
There is a sort of epilogue scene at the end, and this is actually a good segue into our style discussion.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Because I want to draw a parallel back to Blade of Tyshal by Matthew Stover.
Okay.
If you recall, at the end of each chapter in that book, there is this sort of myth, this mythologized telling of the same story of Blade of Tyshal. And during our episode on that, I sort of compared that to exactly what is going on at the end of this book, where we have our close third-person point of view with Rand. You know, he accepts the crown of Ilion, and you get all this, all hail Rand al'Thor, king of the world, blah, 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 blah. And then there's a page break. Well, not a page break, but a line break, and it goes into the story spread as stories will, and changed as stories change with time and distance, spreading out from Ilion by coasting ships and merchant trains of wagons, and pigeons sent in secret, spreading in ripples that danced with other ripples and made new. And it goes on for some time and talks about the rumors that have spread and how this story is developing. And it ends with, and for some reason, men and women who told the tales often found a need to add almost identical words. The storm is coming, they said, staring southward in worry. The storm is coming. And this is one of these kind of key moments in the series where Robert Jordan pulls out of Third Person Limited and goes into this omniscient narrator. It's rare. Most of the time we see him do this is during the wind sequence, where he kind of does a, you know, like a movie camera view that goes down into our third person close point of view.
Yeah.
And then, but here, and this doesn't happen at the end of every book, but it does happen at the end of some books, there is an omniscient narrator that pulls out and has this kind of big view of the world and what is happening after the climax.
Yeah. And in the audiobook is exactly where the music, the dramatic music that finishes off the audiobook starts to kick in as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, no, as far as my style discussion here goes, I did want to point out more use of dramatic irony. We've been hammering this point, you know, again and again, but I still need to point it out in this situation because I found it so amusing. And this was when Nynaeve decides to investigate the kin, but Elaine has no idea why she's suddenly being so subservient. I mean, they are Aes Sedai, after all, right?
Yeah.
But more importantly than that, though, there is one thing in particular that I've been very, very keen to discuss approaching this part of this book, and now's the time. So we get this scene, or it's actually part of a scene, as it's remembered by Perrin, where he and Rand have their fake but totally real fight with one another over the fate of the Aes Sedai in the Wise One's custody. But the reason I want to discuss this is twofold. The first obvious point of discussion is, why did Jordan choose to make this happen off-screen? Because surely, considering the sizes of the last three books, there was definitely page room for another scene or two, right? I want to get both of your opinions on that, Drew and Lauren. Why make this happen off-screen?
I think he did it because he wanted the readers to be nervous, worried about it. That he wanted us to feel like Rand is becoming more unstable.
Okay.
And that if we got the whole thing on the page, where we know that Perrin and Rand like planned it out beforehand, the tension from that scene would have been drained a bit, you know?
I also think we're kind of in the point of view of everybody around them. You know, like Perrin's getting ready to leave and he talks to Loyal, and we're kind of in that same understanding as Loyal is, where it's like, oh, yeah, something happened.
Yeah, something
like,
big.
Hey, I'm so sorry, you know, but...
Oh, I see what you mean. Not like point of view, as in we're not in the perspective, but like we have the same sort of understanding.
Yes.
Okay, that confused me for a second. I was like, what? No, we were in Perrin's point of view. Like,
yeah, no, definitely. I do feel a little better hearing that because I was worried. This is what I was worrying about, and this is the second part of what I wanted to discuss about this. It's the confusion it left me with as a first-time reader at all of 13 years old. You know, I had no idea what was supposedly happening here. I don't know if I lacked the requisite logical fortitude, or perhaps I was too ignorant or naive to pick up on the political intricacies that are involved with such, like, you know, such a public but fake fight. But like reading this originally left me like very, very confused, and it left me confused as a teenager. And since it left me confused as a teenager, I imagine I wasn't like the only one. You know, I was really sincerely worried for Rand and Perrin's relationship for a few solid years until I grew up and I did enough rereads to grasp what was really happening there. Maybe it was like how the fight was supposed to be fake, but Rand and Perrin, especially Rand though, he remembers it with regret and about how far overboard he went. So
yes.
My second question is, considering the effort it would have taken to actually write the scene, as well as how clearly we had room for a few more pages in this one, not to mention how cool that scene would have been to actually read, was it worth it?
I think it was worth it. I liked the way this played out.
Yeah? Because I don't know.
Yeah, and
Go ahead, sir.
you know, we have some hints there too,
Yeah, yeah.
where he talks to Berlane and he's like, "Hey, what if you serve me elsewhere?"
Yeah.
I suppose it confused me so much. Like, I had no idea that there was actually some political maneuvering going on with that until I was like 16 and I was going through this for like the fourth or fifth time. I don't know.
Oh,
I
man.
feel like if it what word did I just try to use? Alienated me enough as an early reader. I worried that a lot of other people had that same experience because it really concerned me, and I think it concerned me more than Jordan was meaning to concern me. I don't know if it's a personal flaw, but I had to at least voice that concern, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sounds like it might be a Rob problem.
Yeah, it might be a Rob problem. Who knows? If you're listening to this, let me know how you came across or how you found this whole situation between Rand and Perrin. Were you actually as worried as I was?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the end of my
I-
style discussion. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, cool. I didn't have anything further either, so I do want to move. Actually, well, no, I'll make one more call out because you brought up the idea of dramatic irony.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the scenes at the end of this book with Samael and Grandal and the Shido
Okay.
because we know that it's Samael and Grandal and the Shido don't.
At this
right?
point, yeah.
And we know
Pardon.
they are just being completely screwed with. And, it's like, it's entertaining, this particular instance of dramatic irony, because, yeah, Samael and Grandal are bad guys, but so are the Shido. And the Shido, I think even, like, on an almost unique level in the Wheel of Time, are contemptuous. Like, I just... It's easy to kind of look down on them for being stupid about everything they do.
Yeah.
For following Savannah, for following Couladin, all this stuff. And so there's almost this sense of vindication seeing them get so thoroughly toyed with.
Sure.
Although that does get mitigated a little bit by the one guy's point of view, Merrick,
Yeah.
who...
And his wife.
Yeah, his wife and daughters are
Yeah.
left behind, and then he's dropped, of course, right in front of Rand's huge army in the plains of Moredo, and they're like, "Well, it's a good run, guys."
Well.
Yeah,
That's...
and which to be fair, also a great move on Samael's part, where
Okay.
Samael thinks like, "Oh, Rand has this huge army. Like, I'm definitely doing what I can to fortify my borders, but if I can throw like a couple dozen thousand Shido spears in their path, that's just gonna help me."
Okay, because that was gonna... I'm glad you brought this up right here, actually, because this is part of the questions that I had for you later.
Oh,
Actually, I think this might be the only one question that I had today. It might be the only one. I'm not promising that. I'm just looking at my notes as a whole here. But we do have some more reader questions to get to later. But this question here, Drew, I was asking this. What the heck was it that Samael was doing and just deciding, I'm just going to sprinkle some Aiel over all of Gildan and Ilion. In as far as I can tell, they're in pretty small packs considering their overall numbers. That doesn't strike me as very, tactically sound for somebody like Samael. Like, why is he giving all these transport or these teleporting boxes and these fool boxes and teleporting him everywhere? I don't understand what his goal here is.
two things.
Okay.
Two things. One, he knows that Rand has an army primed to attack Ilion, and the Shanchan are invading from the other direction.
Okay, Sean.
So he's putting these armies in their path, knowing they're not going to defeat Rand's or the Shanchan's, armies, but they're going to delay them and cause them trouble. And the second thing, though, is probably more important, and that is simply let the Lord of Chaos rule. Dropping thousands of Shido across, a portion of the world that never sees Aiel, and that the Aiel have never seen, is going to sow tons of confusion and chaos.
So. As we also got confirmed by Shaidar Haran, who was watching that, he was wondering, what is Samael up to? Is he sowing chaos, or is he, working towards his own plans? Okay, I guess that was the necessary context that we needed there. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on into characters. Unless Lauren, do you have something? Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, let's move on into characters. And do we want to tackle the elephant in the room first or last?
I feel like we should do it last.
Okay.
I want to. I don't know, because I don't know how long that discussion is going to take, or what's going to be said. So I don't know. I feel like we should stick to the routine as much as possible, and then open that can of worms.
Okay, so let's start with Rand.
Cool.
Rand is extremely frustrating for a chunk of this portion of the book.
Really?
When he goes into this funk, when he goes into this depression, and you're like, on the one hand, it's sort of understandable because he hates what he's becoming and what he has to do to his friends, and he's also struggling with his madness, and he can't really control himself the way he's so used to doing. But at the same time, it's also like really tough to read. You know?
Yeah, I'd say so. You know, I actually wrote down I loved everything about Rand's sequence in the latter half of this book. I wasn't really considering his, as you put it, his downward funk. For most of my notes here, I had actually kind of just gloss over that every time, and I suppose I really shouldn't be for somebody as important as Rand al'Thor. But there was a lot of things about his sequence in the latter half of this book that I loved, and there's just so...
Everything...
Sorry, go ahead.
Everything after the bath.
Yeah, everything after the bath. There's just so many big things happening to and for him, and so many great instances we get of him just of being Ta'veren and actually working out in his favor for a change. What's it like? Okay, I did write this down here. Once he gets over his brooding over what he thinks he's done, with air quotes, to Min, we get to see Rand al'Thor as some of the most majestic and downright badass that he ever gets in the series. You know, like the chapter where he goes to meet the Sea Folk, the parade, the procession, the Aes Sedai approaching him to kneel and to kiss the backs of his hands. I was just like, wow. I got shivers. I'm like, what a power play. That was a detail I'd forgotten about.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Oh, and I personally, one of my favorite series scenes in the whole series is when he duels Torum Ryan.
Yeah. I'm going right there next. You know,
like I loved the little touches. Let me find the chapter. I believe it's Blades is the name of the chapter, and you know, and Torum Riotin is like you know, squaring off, and it's like, without warning, Torum tossed one of the swords. Rand caught it out of the air by the long hilt. Those gloves will slip, cousin. You want a firm grip. And Rand just ignores him.
Well, he talks about the jacket,
yeah,
too.
and he also, like, you know, he's
you're
like...
going to be encumbered, cousin. Rand is
right.
like, bitch, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah, and Rand just ignores him and just fights him to a standstill. Like,
well,
I
he fights him to a
love
standstill.
Well,
He kind of took a really big hit. Torum.
He did,
Utterly
but that was when
devastating
the tent.
Well, that was
flies
because
up in the
Rand
air.
was distracted.
Yeah, but one would argue that's exactly what a Blade Master is not supposed to do. Get distracted.
I mean, sure, but this is a not like, if Rand were actually dueling to kill Torum Riotin and not for fun here, that wouldn't have happened.
I suppose, yeah. If it was an honest blade on blade fight to the death, I think he, you know what, that's a good point. He might have actually, he might have sustained the challenge. He might have actually kept going and or winning. I didn't consider that. Huh.
I mean, the void.
Yeah.
He's not going to be distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so
I wrote that down here too. Like, as a sign of Rand's defiance, though, he closes out that day with an absolute win, and he has this line that I think might be the single greatest line to come out of his mouth yet in all 7 books, where he goes at the very end of that chapter, well, the chapter with the Sea Folk, I should say. The day is young yet, men. Want to see me settle the rebels? 1,000 crowns to a kiss, their mind before sunset.
I love that line.
What a line! That's why I said that has to be the single. I think it's the single greatest line, in my opinion, to come out of his mouth yet in 7 books. That was amazing. But of course, and I did write this down as a important thing to note, though. Jordan still finds need to remind us that Rand al'Thor is still human, despite everything that's happening around him right now. This glory that he's found himself in, the people cheering for him, Ta'veren working out in his nature. He still has to prove to us that Rand is human, and he chooses to do that with Rand's burgeoning claustrophobia. You know, when he's on the Sea Folk ship and he suddenly decides, or he suddenly feels too confined and he's suffocated, and he needs to leave. You know, this claustrophobia that's a result of his wonderful new friendship with the White Tower.
Yep.
Right? So
Yep.
yeah, I thought that was
That
a really
hurt me.
Yeah, that was a really
I just
deft move. I think. Sorry, go ahead.
I really, that scene, I really felt for him.
Like
I just, imagine being in that cabin and the chair is nailed to the floor and he's kind of trapped in there
he has to stoop
against the table.
because he's so tall. Like yeah.
Oh,
See, I've never understood claustrophobia. I understand that it's a legitimate, terrifying thing to go through, but for me, confined spaces don't really do it. So I found that it kind of alienated me a little bit. I never really understood Rand's fear, but I imagine for those with claustrophobia, it would be pretty hard to read, or just anybody who's got that empathetic response.
so I didn't really get claustrophobia until I went caving for the first time.
Ah, that'll do it.
And I say caving, not spelunking, because spelunkers are the ones who
is-
get themselves trapped in a cave, and cavers are the ones who get them out
Oh,
of the cave.
I've never heard that
This
term
is,
before.
This is what I was
Spelunking?
taught. Yeah, everybody says spelunking, but it's not.
Spelunking is cave diving.
No, it's just caving.
I'm so
I've always heard
confused.
that defined as cave diving.
But anyways, like there was a cave we went into where if you're a virgin to this cave, you have to do this little loop. And I had my head turned the wrong way, so I thought I was trapped.
Ah,
Like you can't move your arms and you can't move your legs. You can move
See-
your fingers and your toes, and that's how you're going to move forward. But you can't turn your head. Like it's between the top of the cave and the
Oh
dirt.
my
Oh, that's awful.
God!
That's,
See this.
that's when you start to understand
See-
when you're like, oh no, I'm trapped.
This harkens back to our Calamity episode where we spent 15-20 minutes talking about our worst fears. And Drew, you told us an enthralling story about why you were afraid of heights.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, this is... Yeah, I'm in a dark basement right now, and I feel a little claustrophobic after hearing that story, Lauren. Yikes.
I got out. It was fine.
I'm glad you did. I'm really glad.
But yeah, so sticking on the topic of Rand here,
Yep.
I also want to talk about his continued struggle with killing women,
Okay.
because this comes back again at the end of A Crown of Swords with Leah,
Yeah.
and how Rand kind of gets away with it here, but it shows that this is still a really dangerous sort of tendency he has. He's ready to deliver the killing blow on an unsuspecting Samael, and he instead balefires Leah. And he's lucky because Mashadar got Samael. But Rand's choice to sort of save Leah from her torment, his kind of innate sense of like, I need to protect this woman, could have really bitten him had Samael escaped Mashadar and gotten after Rand again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like, I don't know. As far as his bail firing of Leah, I took it hard the first time, and I've taken it hard every single time since because of what bail fire is, how final it is. It's not something that anybody should be doing lightly, and especially the fact that we have somebody like Randall Thor aiming it towards a woman, which is such a big deal for him. Yeah, I don't really know what I want to say about it. I will say that it was foolish for him to do that, but it should, like, I don't know. I don't know if I would like the character of Randall Thor if he had just abandoned Leah to that fate for his mindless bloodthirst for Samael. Like, I don't know. And on the subject, this is another question actually I want to ask you guys. I just thought of now. How do we feel about Jordan killing off Samael in the manner that he did off screen? Again, we never got to see Samael die. Like, what do both of you guys think about that?
I wish we'd gotten to see it because I kept questioning throughout the first read, like, where is he?
Yeah.
Is he coming back? Where is he?
Drew?
I didn't trust him to be dead.
Yeah, see, that's exactly how I was.
I never had a problem with it, and I did trust him to be dead because I knew that Mashadar is such a like Balefire. Mashadar is a final death. Like, if you're eaten by Mashadar, you're out of the grasp of the Dark One. So, for instance, later in the series we're going to get a particular reference that somebody is masquerading as Samael, or
Yeah.
that Samael gave these orders. And when I read that, I was like, oh, well, clearly it's somebody pretending to be him. It's not actually Samael.
Well, when I read it for the first time, I was obviously very disappointed, wanting to see Samael die on screen, for lack of a better term. And I'm still a lot more on Lauren's train here. I still wish we had gotten to see it, but since then, I also have come to an understanding of what Jordan did with this, and that is proving that we don't need to watch every single person die to accept that they are dead. Because it's a very slippery slope, I think, bringing back characters who everybody presumes to be dead, or who you pass off as dead. And this would have been a perfect example, some very fertile ground, to sow those narrative seeds, to bring him back in the future and be like, well, technically you never saw him die. I can see why Jordan did what he did. I think he wanted to make a point and say, look, some characters are going to die off screen, and you have to accept that. And starting that with Samael, I think, was a good way to prepare for that, for example, the last battle. Right?
And there's a little more to it. So Robert Jordan, of course, was asked many times about this.
I imagine,
people being like, is he actually dead? And he said Samael is toast, and things like that. But one person, I don't have the exact quote here with me, but one person basically asked him, like, why did you do that? Like, it was so anticlimactic. And his response was more or less the lines of, Samael was a punk, so I made him go out like a punk.
Samael was a punk, and I made him go out like a punk.
I mean, he didn't use the word punk, but it was
okay.
kind of that kind of a
connotation to it.
Yeah, like he didn't deserve an epic death.
Wow, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to be reminding you that you said this during my my final draft entry.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, I liked the Ilian fight and Rand's fight against Samael. I greatly enjoyed Moradin's appearance in Shadar Logoth. And I have to ask you guys, so on this topic, the first time you read A Crown of Swords, were you confused? Did you as to who that was who helped Rand?
Yeah. Okay, you know what? I'm trying to remember to my first few reads. I think I was completely flabbergasted on my first and second read. I had no idea who this was. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think I was very skeptical of everyone who was saying it was Moradin.
He names himself.
No.
He says, I'm Moradin.
Wait, does he?
In Shadar Logoth? No. Right?
Doesn't he?
I don't remember that.
Because afterwards, Rand keeps thinking of that man with the strange face. He doesn't put a name to the man until,
maybe
the
I'm
Gathering
wrong.
Storm. But I also, as I professed at the very beginning of this episode, this is that last chapter that we're talking about right now is the one chapter I didn't brush up on right before doing the podcast. So I could be wrong.
Yeah, he does not name himself. Rand asks him several times, "Who are you?" and he avoids it.
Oh, okay. Shoot.
But he does say, I have never been afraid of Aes Sedai. You probably should leave here now, but if you intend to stay and kill Samael, you had better try thinking like him. So he shows that he knows the Forsaken. I don't know. So for me, the first time I read this book, I thought it was clear as day that this was Moradin.
Yeah.
Like, I'm baffled when people are confused by that.
I thought
I thought it was so clear. Like, his description is the same. He the dark hair and blue eyes. He knows the other Forsaken, and he's using Balefire, but it's slightly different, so it's clearly the true power.
You see, I think it must have been a question of motives, though, and that's I guess my next question for you right now, as I'm thinking him up and I go along here. Why did Moradin have to help Rand? Why did he choose to do that? I never really understood that.
He says a great many plans will have to be relayed if you don't kill him here, if you die here.
Yep. The line is, you can find the way, it seems, if you're led by the hand. Try not to stumble. A great many plans will have to be relayed if you let yourself be killed now.
And I take that to mean, as we go on in the rereads of the story, he needs him to go down this path of madness so that he can
Yeah.
in the very end, get him
The
to
Dark
that point.
One, if the Dark One is going to ultimately succeed, he needs to turn the dragon.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
If the dragon dies, the cycle just happens again. Like, the Dark One can't fully win without Rand on his side.
Well, hold on a second though, but that brings up another question then. What would have happened if Rand had died here? The Dark One still would have broken free, would he not have? Free to remake the world in his own image.
And there probably would have been, like another, seal reforged imperfectly, and we would have had another cycle come around.
Maybe. Interesting to consider.
But
and I realize
because at this point in the series, everything the Shadow is doing is not pointed at killing Rand. It's pointed at converting him.
Yeah.
And the only people who are actually trying to kill Rand are off doing their own selfish things. Ignoring the Dark One's orders.
I realize we are still at the very beginning of our character discussions here. I have one more thing about Rand's character I wanted. Well, actually not about Rand's character. This is something about Min's character, but I found it appropriate to insert it in my points about Rand here. This was in chapter 33, A Bath. I made the note that, like Elaine and Avienda, Min also takes none of Rand al'Thor's bullshit. And there is definitely some bullshit, to be sure. Never let it be said that I said Rand is flawless. But how Min differs from Elaine and Avienda is that she doesn't do it from a high and mighty place. Like she doesn't use condemnation like Elaine seems to a lot of the time, or insult like Avienda seems to. Min just seems to keep Rand human by way of, snorting at his lame attempt at jokes and jabbing him in the ribs when he needs it. I was never too much into Min, as a first or second or even 10th time reader, but I'm growing far more appreciative of that woman now that I'm a young man. She sounds really freaking cool. How do we feel about Min?
I mean, I still don't particularly like her, but
no,
yeah.
Lauren,
I recognize the ways in which she helps Rand,
especially here.
But she's not my kind of person.
No, Lauren,
I would be driven up the wall by her.
Drew's definitely pointed out to me the points where I have a grudge against, Min. Like,
sure.
She did some really stupid things. I can see how she helps him in the ways that the other girls aren't able to, because they have important things to do in this series. But I don't know. I think I'm still rethinking how I feel about her.
That's fair. I'm interested in what these really, really stupid things are. Are they in the past or are they in the future?
Future.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely want to... Lauren? Or, sorry, I should say Drew, make sure Lauren's on for those episodes. Because Drew will know when they're coming.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if we can get you on. I know we already have a lot of our guests scheduled for future books.
That's true. That's definitely true.
I don't want to get too many cooks in the kitchen, but...
that wraps up
if we don't
everything I have to say about Rand al'Thor for now. Should we move on to Matt, but that also kind of could lead us into that proverbial
let's
minefield.
do Matt last. Let's do Matt last.
Well, okay, Matt and
let's
Tylin
talk about
last
the
then.
Wonder Girls.
Okay, let's talk about the Wonder Girls. Start with Elaine.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Big moment for Elaine that she's completely unaware of. She is now queen, not only by rightful succession, but by transference. Right?
Yep.
Morghese has officially spoken the irrevocable words. I think they're called the irrevocable words.
Yep.
Elaine has no idea that her mom's alive, but now she's just so much more rightly the queen and needs to get her ass firmly planted on that throne. And we also had a lot of satisfaction from Elaine's point of view. As, first she gets to put the Aes Sedai in the Terrasen Palace firmly in their place. And then she gets to enlist their aid in her triumphant return to the kinswomen. So much win.
I loved both of those scenes.
Love those.
Definitely cheering for her, Elaine, in those scenes. I was like, yes, so much win. So much.
Like the faces on Rihanna and the kin when they walk in and they're like, oh no.
Well, they have their masks on. She takes hers off first and is like, ooh.
Yeah, just the instant paling. They're like, oh, and their assumption, they're just like, they assume that, of course, oh, Elaine's the one that's in trouble though, and they're here to interrogate her about Elaine, right? It's like, no, I forget which Aes Sedai it was. It might have been Marililla.
The line is, I fear you
Yes.
must address yourself to Elaine Sedai.
Yes, I fear you must address yourself to Elaine Sedai. What a stupidly huge grin I got from ear to ear when I read that line again. I was just like, ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Oh,
So great.
Satisfying. Very satisfying.
Well, I love her scene when she's addressing them. Like, they're all like, how dare you? You know, we've held this secret for so long, and here you are endangering it. And she's like, excuse me. And she lets them go at her for a minute, and then she's like, voice of command, here we go. No way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no way. I do not accept responsibility for your foul up. For
Right.
not telling me.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
Yep. So good.
Yeah, the pretty much like Elaine and Nynaeve in this portion of the book are great. I don't really have much to complain about at all with them,
Same.
and I have lots to glow about.
Well,
like
I actually
their
have
chapters are fun.
a couple of very specific things that I'm going to gnash my teeth about coming up in a few minutes about Elaine.
Well, yeah, there's one thing that I'm going to complain about, but that's part of the Matt and Tylin discussion. so-
Exactly the same as it is for me, I bet it is. But as far
Yeah.
as for the vast majority of Elaine and Nynaeve, especially for Elaine's character, I was just in this series, in this point, in this scene, I was just so stoked for her. It was so vindicating to see her get to do that.
Yeah.
I do get annoyed with their pettiness towards Matt.
Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah.
So I'm gonna complain about that because
Oh,
it gets obnoxious at a couple points in this book
Obnoxious.
where I'm just like, yes,
But most of that is before this section that we're discussing today. Most of it, not all of it.
yeah. You're talking about
They're much
Well,
better
like-
after they are forced to apologize to him.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Which is
They're
where we
better.
left off
They're
last time.
definitely better. Yeah. And yeah, that's right. So if I'm remembering correctly, the first chapter that we opened with this time was the chapter where they apologized to him.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I was so ready to talk about that at length in the last episode, and I realized that was one chapter past where we had stopped. So I was like, oh no. But now that I'm realizing I still have those notes open, I can let's see what I have about Matt here. The start of his bromance with Brigitte. Oh my god.
I love it.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was at the end of the last.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I must have mentioned that previously. Then.
Yeah, the last chapter we read for the
21.
previous episode was Swoven Night.
Yeah, Swoven
which
Night.
is when Matt drinks with Brigitte
Right,
and
right.
recognizes
and the
her.
hangover is where we pick up
Yeah.
before in this one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
they still have some time together.
yeah.
They do. Yeah, they like drink lemonade and stuff out, like trying to
Yeah.
spy on the kin, and they're like pointing out, Brigitte's pointing out like cute chicks, and Matt's pointing out ugly dudes.
Yeah. And to expound upon Lauren's point there with his battle of the sexes that's going on between the Wonder Girls and Matt here, when they finally apologize to Matt for their behavior in the stone, and Matt just brushes it off as, oh, it was nothing. Which, you know, as a young male in my own right, I can absolutely see why he would say that. He doesn't want to seem like he really, really required too much out of them. But also, no longer being an ignorant teenager, or maybe just now being an ignorant adult, I can also see where Elaine's indignation comes from right there. What about you? Drew, you sound like you want to say something. Sorry, go ahead, dude.
Yeah, so I don't think Matt was diminishing that because he was like trying to act cool. I think he was diminishing it because he was painfully hungover and just wanted them to leave.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
He was
That's
like,
without
I
question.
don't want to be talking. I don't want to deal with anybody right now. Cool, fine, whatever. Get out of here.
A thank you would have also accomplished the same thing, though. But he just wants to downplay it. I think it's a mark of his character. Right? Even in his wretched state. Oh God, I hate hangovers like that. It's the worst thing in the world, right? Is there a worse feeling than being that hungover?
I mean, it's pretty far up.
Oh God, it sucks. But as I was saying, sorry, before I went off on that tangent there, he brushes it off as though it was nothing because he probably just feels sheepish at that moment. It probably makes him uncomfortable to have somebody actually meet his eyes and kind of just profess their faults, especially coming from Elaine and Nynaeve. That must have been so uncomfortable for him. Even though he kind of obviously wanted an apology, I think when he finally got it, it was he had bitten off more than he could chew, and he was just really uncomfortable about it.
I mean, maybe a little bit, but I really think it was mostly because he was just so uncomfortable.
There
and
is
in
that
pain,
possibility.
Like, Like,
I mean, that would be...
It was very much him being like, let me go back to bed, leave me alone.
Yeah, if that was me, that's exactly what I would have meant. But I think Matt Coffin is a better person than I am.
But, so, do you want to move into Matt, then? Is that where we're going here?
Yeah.
Nynaeve.
Oh, we have Nynaeve. Yeah, let's get Nynaeve out of the way before we step on that landmine.
Okay.
Okay, now... So, Nynaeve, so much good for Nynaeve in this part too here.
Oh, happy day, Lan.
Huge moment for Nynaeve, perhaps the biggest moment for her character in this entire series at this point so far. She broke through her block. You know?
Yep.
And it was fascinating knowing what's coming beforehand. I guess maybe a little bit more dramatic irony, depends on how you define it. But it's interesting to see the pattern itself shift itself and shift her into a position where she can finally do just that. And it was admittedly pretty dark. I mean, for Nynaeve, it was surrendering to death. But it also really says something about her strength of character, or maybe just her strength of will, that she literally needed to die, or at least accept dying, to break through her own self-imposed block.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I find that interesting that she only has to do it once.
Well, yeah, I mean, ideally you only have to... Well, what am I trying to say?
No, I think it makes sense.
It makes... Yeah, once you do it the first time, it becomes easier every single time after that, I imagine.
I don't know for her. I don't know that this had, like, a huge effect on her mindset. I think she's still the same person, so it's interesting that she just has to...
Well, I think...
See, I don't. I think she becomes a very different person after this.
Yeah, with the block itself, I always took that more of a self-imposed restriction. Like, it's something that you don't believe is possible. I think your own self-belief has a huge part to play in it.
And a big part of this block was her struggle with the identity of an Aes Sedai, and concurrent with her breaking her block is the collective group of Aes Sedai around Elaine and her recognizing them as Aes Sedai. Like, Nynaeve very, very seamlessly shifts into a position of authority among the Aes Sedai after she breaks her block.
Okay, now here's here's another question. Sorry. Why would she not also then take the lead as the strongest, by far, by orders of magnitude, the strongest of all of them?
I mean, she does take the lead a lot.
But Elaine still strikes me as the one who's in charge most of the time. Is that just because Nynaeve steps back and lets her...
Well, it depends on the situation.
Right.
Like, when there's situations where Elaine is better suited for, taking the lead.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, but, like, I mean, especially when we see Nynaeve in Winter's Heart and onward, where, like, she's in basically a power struggle with Cadsuane, like, it's Nynaeve pretty quickly after breaking her block accepts herself as an Aes Sedai and transitions into acting like an Aes Sedai.
As far as the block goes, though, I think it really has to do with... Yeah, no, sorry, I agree with everything that you just said. I actually hadn't considered that, the fact that this happens right concurrently in the narrative as she is accepted as an Aes Sedai by other Aes Sedai, and she gets that position of influence and authority. I hadn't considered that. But with this block that she has, I think it's a big part of her being able to do it going forward without having to break through this block again and again and again, is because she has to accept that it is possible. And that sounds really trivial, I suppose, but when she actually manages to feel Saidar inside of her without being in a helpless rage, I think that changed her enough, and that just the idea that she saw herself able to do that kind of just lifted that veil from her eyes, and she managed to break. She doesn't have to go. I think that's why she doesn't have to break it, or anybody for that matter has to break their block again and again and again. With Theodrin, it was I think with Theodrin it was attractive men,
boys.
Yep.
Right. And she had to like close her eyes, or maybe there's a different Aes Sedai who couldn't channel anything.
Yeah, no, that was
Theodrin.
Yep.
That was okay. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. That's everything. Okay, sorry, that's not everything I wanted to say about Nynaeve. Mashiara. That whole scene, Lan's return. Holy crap.
Oh.
First off, the ebook cover, I'm really disappointed I don't have the webcam running up this week, because I was going to show you guys the ebook cover, unless you... I
know what it looks like.
It's great to see Lan and Nynaeve like finally brought together on a cover like that. And also, Nynaeve married.
Yep.
It's since it's such a pertinent theme over the past few episodes. I don't know if you've given them a listen yet, Lauren, but I'll say it again. Congrats, Nynaeve, on the sex. And I think she really needed it. Honestly, a Nynaeve, sorry, this might sound really, really crass. I think she needed it.
So I want to kind of rewind a little bit to the book cover point you brought up there with the ebook cover. You love that cover. So it's funny. Cover. That cover got major backlash.
Because of how awesome Lan looks and how handsome he is?
No, because Lan looks like a zombie and Nynaeve has red hair.
Oh, see, I'm looking at it in e-ink that's black and white. I don't see color.
Yeah.
They have 90s hair is red? Yeah, what the really?
It's like really dark red.
What?
And Lan's face is like gaunt and skeletal and pale.
Well, yeah, he's like,
and a lot of people pushed back hard on it. And he's that's why that is why when they released the trade paperback versions of these books with the ebook artwork, they changed the artwork for Crown of Swords to the Cadswain scene.
Cadswain scene? There's another ebook cover?
No, it's the trade paperback version.
Oh, I'm gonna look this up.
They commissioned new artwork for A Crown of Swords and new artwork for the Path of Daggers. The original Path of Daggers ebook cover was the three of them using the Bowl of the Winds.
Oh, I have seen that.
And there was again a lot of pushback on that because people were saying like they got like Nynaeve's nose wrong and that it was too comic booky and it didn't look right and all this. And so when they released the trade paperback version of Path of Daggers, they commissioned new artwork, and it is the scene of Elaine unraveling the gateway.
Oh, and I'm looking at the Crown of Swords right now, the art for the trade paperback on that with Cadswain there. That's cool. I've never seen this one.
Yep.
That makes me like Cadswain even more. I do want to discuss Cadswain today. We also have some listener questions about Cadswain too that we still need to get to. Damn, we got to get chugging on this episode.
You know, let's save the Cadswain discussion until the listener question about her.
Yeah, sure.
But segueing just quickly off of Nynaeve, we got to talk about Moghedien.
Oh.
Because she does have a point of view full chapter and another section just before Nynaeve breaks her block. I want to point out, first off, how much it shows the extent of the kind of psychological damage Moghedien has taken from her experiences fighting Nynaeve and losing, and then being mind-trapped and tortured and presumably raped by Shadar Haran.
Oh, presumably raped? I hadn't got that vibe.
Well, she is a Murdral, dude.
Yeah. Okay. Fair point.
This is the spider. This is the woman who strikes from the shadows only when she knows she can absolutely win. And she just climbed up on top of a roof in broad daylight and tried to cast balefire in the middle of a city.
I didn't see that so much as like part of her changing character, so much as I saw it as the pattern forcing Nynaeve into a position where she has to confront her block.
Well, I mean, it's one and the same. She's so rattled, she's so off kilter, off her game, that she does this incredibly rash thing. Okay. And that incredibly rash thing allows Nynaeve to break her block.
So what I interpreted as the pattern just kind of forcing our pawns into these positions, you're saying, is actually a really good point, could simply be the pattern using Moghedien's shame and her change of character as a vehicle to bring about Nynaeve's confrontation.
Yes,
right?
And I also think we have to be careful about considering the pattern as like an active, conscious thing that forces people to do things.
Fair enough.
Like, the pattern doesn't weave itself. Like, a major theme in the series is free will. People can make choices. Even people like Rand and Matt and Perrin, who are the most constrained by the pattern. So it's more like the pattern allows room for choices to end up benefiting certain people.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not like the pattern forcing Moghedien to go do this.
Right. And that's a mistake I think I've been making quite a bit, and I'll be wary about making going forward, because this is not the last time I'm going to read this series.
Oh no, yeah. But I want to rewind back to that Moghedien point of view.
Yeah, go for it.
Where we have her memory of meeting, waking up in the vacuole and meeting Moradin and I love that scene.
Yeah, he's just sitting down there writing letters, I suppose, or something, like going through ledgers. I can just totally see like a pair of bifocals on his head, and he's just being really, really prim about that. Sorry, go ahead. What about that scene?
Well, no, I love the dynamics it shows us among the Shadow and the shifting dynamics among the Forsaken, where Moradin, like, it used to be much more kind of egalitarian and confrontational among the Forsaken, especially in the early books when Ishamael is around, where we see like Lanfear arguing with him in the World of Dreams and things like that. And now it has become very clear Moradin is a step above.
Yeah.
In this book, Moradin is kind of observing and spying on the other Forsaken, but not in like any sense of I need to know what they're up to in case they're working against me. It's more of a like parental or authoritative observation where he's like, I hope you're not getting up to too much bad. You know, like, I hope you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And he's so secure in his authority now that this marks a huge shift in the political landscape among the Forsaken.
And to expand upon that, there's also something else I wanted to bring up about Moradin and his relationship in the way that Jordan chooses to mirror that character with Shaidar Haran. This is something that we saw earlier in Lord of Chaos when Jordan was mirroring Rand al'Thor in Demandred. Because in two separate scenes in this book, we have, Grandal and we have Samael with their little machinations. And then we have another character.
The Watcher.
The Watcher. The first time we had Moradin, and the second time we had Shaidar Haran. By the way, that Shaidar Haran scene, that was something I gobbled up every single time I came across that. There was something I wanted to know so much more about that Myrddraal and what made him different. The fact that he had these abilities that other Myrddraal didn't have, these personality traits and quirks, these just simply the fact that for some reason he still had this weakness too. Up to this point, Shaidar Haran
that was the big hint to me that he was essentially a vessel for the Dark One to reach into the world. It was this restriction. I can't go too far away from Shaidar or from Shaiel Ghul, and if I do, I can only stay away for so long before I have to go back.
The fact that the spear kind of just disintegrates in his hand, these are the kind of moments where I'm just thinking about the threat that Rand al'Thor still has yet to face, and it's just spine-tingling. It's just so intimidating in scope. It's just like, oh my god. And of course, Shaidar Haran being so intimidating up to this point, we get this little moment of weakness, and it ties directly with Shaiel Ghul itself, which is intimidating in its own implications, and it's like, holy crap. But what I was originally getting on this point here for was wanting to discuss the way that Jordan mirrors this exact scenario with Shaidar Haran, with Moradin, and the fact that they're both, again, kind of played as these observers who are kind of pulling the strings, but not everybody else is aware, right?
Yeah. It's another thing I wanted to bring up, just a tiny little tidbit from that Moghedian scene when she is mind-trapped and she sees him, her mind trap is on this necklace, and she sees a second one inside his ship.
And that draws so much discussion. I love the sheer amount, again, of the fertile ground of so much discussion that Jordan just casually plants right there in front of everybody. Yep. It's masterfully done.
Yeah. So
we're still on our character discussions. We haven't discussed Perrin yet.
I don't have a whole lot to say about Perrin. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, he only gets like a couple of scenes in this part of the book.
Hang on a second. I'm looking at my notes from last week when I had tons to talk about with Perrin. I actually really didn't write down anything about Perrin this week. Sorry, my apologies. So you were saying you didn't also have much about Perrin to say this time?
Yeah. I mean, he's only in a couple of scenes, leaving the Sun Palace and going to Eodan.
Yeah.
But we are, close to an hour in now. I think we need to tackle Mat and Tylin.
Okay, because we still have questions to get to as well after this.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's put our flame suits on, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Jump right into this one.
And we are going to jump right in, and I'm just going to say this straight out. Tylin raped Mat.
Yep.
This is not an argument.
Yep. 100% agreed.
She sexually assaulted him and harassed him and stalked him and finally raped him at knife point.
Yeah.
And we're going to see the psychological effects of this going forward. Mat really suffers some, Stockholm syndrome. He also, there are points in this book where Mat's talking about, how he just wants to cry.
Yeah.
This is not a healthy thing that is happening to him. And while it is played a little bit, as like a role reversal, because Matt is like, you know, a flirt. Nothing Matt ever does
Yes.
is remotely like what happens to him.
I will
here.
drink again right to that point. Sorry, continue.
Yep.
He does not chase after girls when they say no. He does not force himself on them. He does not use violence to get women. Like he
does not stalk.
Yeah, he doesn't stalk them and starve them and treat them like animals. And probably, so I'm going to segue back to Elaine and Nynaeve. Maybe one of the most infuriating parts of this book, outside of the actual rape of Matt, is when Nynaeve and Elaine are laughing at him about it.
Yeah.
And saying he deserved it.
So, yeah.
That incenses me.
Now, let me begin by saying I agree with every single thing that Drew has just said. He has not been wrong yet at this point. I don't think he's going to be wrong, because we have discussed this at length in the past. Together, just in private, we've discussed it online, in forums, in theory posts and stuff like that. But I do have to say, because I agree with every single thing you just said, I can already think of a counter argument that somebody might throw at you for saying that. And they would say, you've mentioned before in the past Jordan's proclivity for using the unreliable narrator as a device. And what if, even though, of course, we're basing our assumptions that Matt doesn't treat women like this at all, could that have anything to do with the fact that Matt doesn't see himself as doing these kinds of things, but maybe he is in reality? I don't think that at all, but I can see somebody trying to fling that in your face. So what would you say to that?
No, because Matt may be an unreliable narrator in some situations, but Matt was raised in the Two Rivers and raised us with a certain perspective on women, and we see this as a major theme in the series. You do not harm women if you're a man of the Two Rivers.
Yeah, and harm does not necessarily simply mean physical harm.
Yeah, like this is... That's a non-point in my mind.
Yeah. Lauren?
That's an extraordinarily flimsy counter-argument.
So I was going to bring up that it's not just once. He's reflecting when she sends him that basket of food.
Yeah.
That he was grabbed by the servants and forced into the room.
Yep.
For her. Again. Like, this is something that keeps happening.
Wait, I completely missed this little detail. He was physically forced into a room by a gang of servants?
She sent, like, a group of servants to grab him and drag him into the bedroom.
He's reminiscing about it. Like, he's thinking back when he's got this
flashback,
stupid basket that she sent him. It's in that chapter where they start...
Yeah,
they're heading off.
They're leaving for the Rahad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah. No, I remember the scene where he gets the basket.
Yep.
And I want to say, and this is something that both of you have touched on in our discussion so far. I'll just expand upon that. A huge part of my frustration with these scenes is not only about Tylin's behavior, and I don't know if this says something about me personally, but more so than that, as utterly despicable as Tylin's behavior is in almost every scene that she was in, what bothered me above and beyond all other considerations was how Nynaeve and Elaine treated Matt throughout this entire thing. The suspicious glares, the scathing admonitions, the presumption to accuse Matt Cawthon, apparently because he simply has this appendage called a penis, of forcing himself on her. Like, against all logic. Like, they assume, having been given no reason to suspect Matt, of all people, to comport himself in such a way, that Tylin was the helpless victim. And that the Queen of Bloody Altara herself can't, like, say, for example, summon guards to protect her if that was the case. As if she couldn't have had Matt arrested with a barest wave of her hand. She might not be the most powerful of rulers on the planet, but she is the highest ranking person, this figure of authority for 1,000 miles in any direction. Their assumptions against Matt's character was bad enough, but their assumptions against all logic was somehow even worse. And it honestly really stained those characters of Elaine and Nynaeve for me through a significant portion of this book and future books going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, and so just for reference, the quote here, it's when Matt walks out into the courtyard and he says, "Besides, she would not try anything here. At least he did not think she would. Then again, was anything past the woman who had had half a dozen serving women seize him in the halls last night and drag him into her apartments? The bloody woman treated him like a toy. And that language continues on, where he talks about how she treats him like, quote, some sort of doll. And, like,
Yeah.
he's being completely dehumanized in this. Like, I cannot... And, like, it also drives me nuts when I see people try to argue, like, oh, it's just like a BDSM relation. Like, no, there's no consent going on. There's nothing, like, there's no two-way street. Like, this is a purely sexually predatory thing going on here. And...
It's mentally predatory.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I agree.
Duckling, kitten...
Like, I'm going to feast on roast duckling tonight, and all the servants and the cooks are laughing. And the fact that she's willing to starve him, right?
Yeah.
I don't even have words. The fact that she's denying him food to make him crawl into her bed is just the most despicable, disgusting behavior. I didn't have as much of a problem with this when I was a teenager because I had a lot of hormones, yada, 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 yada. I still found it terrible, reprehensible behavior, but I wasn't nauseated by it like I am now.
Well, it's easy to gloss over because the rest of the characters don't see
Act
it that way.
like it's not a big deal.
And Matt doesn't see himself...
And Matt's conditioned through this to basically... You know
what it was
blame himself
as like going through and trying to justify this to myself, I suppose, as a teenager. I think it was the fact that Matt has this oft-repeated line throughout this entire scenario of, or at least implying that maybe he's just justifying it to himself, but he keeps implying that the main reason this bothers him is because he is supposed to do the chasing. And that it's just
right.
Matt himself is presenting it as a gender bend, a reversal of circumstance. That the reason it bothers him, or even he himself, he might have approached her for a dance or something like that. But he's the one that does the chasing, and for some reason he keeps justifying to himself that is why it makes him so uncomfortable.
And he justifies the extreme nature of it because she's a queen. She can do what she wants.
Yeah,
she can use this
Tylin,
extreme force because she's the queen.
Authority is part of something that I meant to condemn her for, but I haven't remembered to do so until now. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, like it's...
Yeah.
I don't know. I get really, really...
It's 5 seconds of silence.
Heated about this.
I agree with that. Like... yeah. All right. Have we got everything we need to say about this horrible situation out of the way? Should we continue? Sorry,
yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. I'm kind of like trying to marshal my thoughts and decide what I want to say here. And I kind of want to say this.
Sure, go ahead.
So this is a big thing that I harp on a lot. Like themes of rape in general don't sit well with me, and this especially with Matt and Tylin. And that is because some years ago now I was sexually assaulted. And it like it's so hard to get out of your own head. And reading Matt's point of view, where he's so in his own head, and how easy it is for people to blame you, for something that's not your fault, when you're taken advantage of, and then you get these idiots out there being like, oh, well, it's not possible for a guy, and I don't know.
You know, I have to point this out as an occasion, ladies and gentlemen, where everybody else listening to this is learning something about Drew at the same time that I'm learning something about Drew. I've never heard this before. I can say that I definitely know people who are in the exact same position. You know what? In fact, I'm comfortable enough saying it. I was also sexually assaulted several times. that said, it's actually, Jesus Christ, this is not something I was prepared to say today. I'm not sure if there's anything that can be said about it. Anybody who's been in a situation similar to this doesn't need to hear what we have to say, because they know. They honestly do. Reading this, I don't know if Jordan was trying to use this as a plot device. I don't know if I really honestly count this as a mark against Jordan's character. Maybe he experienced something like this in his own life, and this was an outlet for him to express that. I don't know, but I think he handled it very poorly in this case.
I agree.
And
I do not think he wrote this sequence as he should have. I think he made it way too easy for people to view it as comedy. This is one of my biggest criticisms of the Wheel of Time. Not just like, oh, I'm like angry at what this character did in this situation. I think this is a major failing on the part of the writer.
Sure.
And I really, really hope that this is not in the TV series. It's...
Or at least they present it perhaps in a different way. Perhaps in a way
maybe that, but I could do without it altogether. I could do without it altogether.
See, I could do without it altogether, but at the same time, I just worry about that slippery slope. What else can be left out? What else can be changed for anyone else's infinite number of ends? I think that this was handled in the wrong way. I'm not condemning this kind of subject material, but I'm condemning this particular manner in which it was presented, in which it was executed.
Yeah.
I will say I saw it as him making a point, as like, watch how many of my readers just gloss over this when it's a reality.
I don't think he was doing that.
You don't think he was doing
no,
that?
I don't.
No.
And I think if he had done that, Harriet would be much more outspoken about this when people ask her about it. And as it is, she's pretty low key in her responses and just saying, "Oh, it's a role reversal," and that, there's. I think this was a major misstep on Robert Jordan's part.
Saying it's a role reversal implies that this is a role
that he does
which Matt has taken beforehand.
Which, no.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, completely disagree.
So, that said.
Good lord, they're being really incredibly loud upstairs. Sorry. Okay, so are we at the end of our character discussions here?
No, we're not, because we just did Matt and Tylin.
Yes.
And we have more Matt to discuss.
Oh, okay.
Because we have Matt and the Golem, and we have Matt and Olver at the end of this book.
Oh yeah, Matt and Olver, yeah.
The chapter I think was called Promises to Keep, and how Matt handles the sea folk, and how he takes it upon himself to find Olver. There are undercurrents throughout that chapter that really show Matt's baseline decency, how concerned he is for this orphan, that he's taken under his wing, and the way he reacts when he's going through the city and starts realizing the Shanshan are invading. It's and then how even though he's annoyed at Nynaeve and Elaine, he takes it upon himself to, he realizes, like, I'm the one who has to do this, and instead of just letting them be on their own, he steps in with the sea folk and uses his knowledge from his memories.
Yeah. Uses his knowledge to adapt to their customs, to establish a dialogue with them accurately, and also to insult them. Mm-hmm. I love that Daughter
of the Sands?
Yes,
Bilgestone?
Bilgestone. And then he's thinking to himself, no, he has a better control on his temper than that. And then he insults him again. And he thinks, oh no, maybe he doesn't have a better control on his temper than that. And of course, honestly, since we're on the subject of insult or cursing from Matt, as an aside, my favorite Wheel of Time curse of them all.
Oh?
Oh, sheep swallow. Sheep swallop and
swallop
bloody
and bloody
buttered
buttered
onions.
There's another really good one in this book that I enjoy when he calls him a flaming penny grover and says he'll stuff a white cloak down his gullet.
I didn't like that one anywhere near as much as I love sheep swallop and bloody buttered onions.
Oh, I know. No, trust me. Sheep swallop and bloody buttered onions is the best curse in the entire
And then
series.
Matt, of course, out of the corner of his eye, glimpsing Elaine, kind of mouthing that one.
Blood
to
and
save
fire.
It. Yeah, trying to internally save that one in her records. That's just
Oh yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say during the fight with the golem when Elaine goes down, and she says, well, a couple of times. So she says blood and fire once, and then later she sees like all the dead, and she goes, "Oh, light! Oh, blood and bloody flaming ashes!" And Matt's just like, "What?"
Oh, sweet summer child, you don't know much, considering what she's going to learn in the future. I do like Elaine's her proclivity for the cursing, or at least her attempt at learning how to curse. It's something for somebody as prim and somebody.
It's endearing.
With her upbringing, it's very endearing. I will accept. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a mark for her in my case. Yeah.
So.
Ooh, I do have something on that discussion. You know, when he's talking with the sea folk, he also, has to bring up all of Brigida's knowledge about the golem.
Uh-huh.
When I first read this, was like, oh man, like, what else are we going to dig out from her memories? What else do we get?
Oh.
She has all this buried in there, and we know from further on in the series, she only has a limited amount of time with all these memories still there.
Uh-huh.
And I would have loved to get more.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, damn. I hadn't considered that.
That's a good point.
That would have been a huge source of frustration for me if I had thought to consider that. And going forward, it's now going to be a huge source of frustration for me. Damn it.
Sorry about that.
That's a good point. Brigitte we could know so much more than we currently do.
Yeah, she knows about stasis boxes too. What?
Damn.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So on the topic of characters, I just want to say, rest in peace, Nelisian.
Nelisian, my man. He went out exactly like he wanted to. He did not want a boring morning, and a boring morning he did not get.
Yeah. So, I loved him, and at least we got him resurrected when Brandon Sanderson got a hold of Talmanes, so.
Yep, pretty much. I could agree with that. There's also a moment later when Matt thinks to himself, I want to say it's in a memory of Light, about Tylin and Nelisian having a dance together in the afterlife about something. Maybe, like, I don't know, something that was bothering him in the moment. I liked him at least mentally referencing Nelisian. The man deserved it. He was interesting to read, and I was sad to see him go.
Yep.
He was fun.
Yep.
Yeah. So, with that, shall we move into listener questions?
Yes.
I kind of want to combine listener questions and lore together, since the questions I saw are kind of overlapping with the lore I
absolutely. Sweet. Okay, so Michael Good asks, gents, it's known that the crossing streams of Balefire is what establishes the connection between Rand and Moradin. How does this work?
Yeah. So this is still sort of theory, although Brandon Sanderson actually came out fairly recently and illuminated, although he was careful not to say confirming, yes, this is exactly what the deal is, but it's the idea that channeling is linked to the soul, right?
Yeah.
And so when you are casting Balefire, so to speak, it is your soul driving it.
I'm so glad
your soul has this sort of intent behind it. And when the Balefire streams crossed, because Balefire exists outside of the pattern, Balefire cannot erase Balefire. It cannot burn Balefire out of the pattern. And the Balefire merged, becoming one stream because it couldn't fight itself.
Yep.
And
Logically,
in that moment, when the Balefire merged into one stream, Rand's soul and Moradin's soul also merged, because the souls are tied to the Balefire through the power.
Yeah. And I think the fact that they are also playing very, very similar roles in the pattern itself being, opposites of one another, being balanced in that manner might have had a lot to do with it. I don't know. But I'm really...
I like the philosophical intent behind that idea.
And I'm really glad that you brought this up, because I was going to say something along those lines, though nowhere near as articulately. I was just going to say that I'm pretty sure that balefire, being something that affects the pattern itself, being something that's kind of distinct from the pattern, like it kind of establishes this connection to your soul. The balefire I saw as part of somebody's soul, and the fact that they were able to touch those streams, they were able to form that connection, they were able to form that bridge, if you will, or maybe that bridge for their souls to find one another past that point, to continue doing this. I mean, we know later that Rand also, spoilers for the future of the series, obviously you knew that coming in, Rand also is granted access to the true power later because of this exact thing, right? His connection to Moradin, everything that they're feeling, these phantom pains from one another. Their souls are inextricably linked, and they are linked more than they ever have been before in any other iteration of the pattern, as far as I can tell, before. Because of this balefire. And I think the reason for that is because, as Drew just said, balefire itself is more than a weave. And I don't care what Perrin says later in the series, it's just a weave. It's something more. It has to be something more, because its opposite is also something more. The Flame of Tar Valon.
It was really... this is a discussion for Towers of Midnight.
Yeah, definitely.
That line makes sense in the context of its telling, but in the context of this conversation, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But that is, to the best of our current knowledge, which is probably the best we're ever going to get, that is the explanation for how the Balefire Crossing connected their souls.
Yeah.
So.
It's part of your soul. Balefire is part of your soul, and when your soul touches another soul, it's linked somehow. I guess we'll have to take that, right?
So, what's the next question?
The next question here is from, this is one I really want to get to talk about, from Christian Prater. Is Cadsuane a strong character, and do you guys like her?
Well, I think we answered that, the second one on our last episode.
Yep. I definitely did. Definitely.
But they are very much two different questions, and I do think she's a strong character. I think she serves a role in the series. I think she serves an impactful, even though I hate the word impactful, she serves an important role in the story going forward. She's not she's not an expendable character, I don't think. Robert Jordan had a strong vision for her and executed it well. I think she's very well written. Her personality is fully realized. She changes a little bit as a character, but she's also the kind of character who's not supposed to change. That's what she is. When you're 275 years old, you're set in your ways. And so it's her character arc that we see begin in this book is all about how she has to adapt despite being so set in her ways. And I think that was well written.
Lauren? Cadsuane.
Yeah. I only get annoyed at Cadsuane a little bit. And that's when her pride overcomes what she should be doing. She doesn't always think through. She just knows that she is right. And I think that's a big theme throughout all the books with a bunch of different characters. Like, imagine if Ramonda and Liane could work together with Swan. Like, what an insane rebel force they could have, because they have the experience, that Egwene does not have. And I think the only reason Egwene ends up where she is because pride. Like, they outdo themselves, competing with each other because they all think they know best. And it happens over and over again with the,
Welcome to the Aes Sedai.
Welcome to the Aes Sedai.
I also agree with both of what you're with both of you guys. I made it very clear in the last episode that I am a huge Cadsuane fanboy, even though I definitely was not as a teenager, I had a huge turnaround on her front. I love Cadsuane. I think I don't think she's flawless, because I don't think anybody's flawless, but I think she is damn near as close as it gets. No, I can't say that either. Lauren, you make a good point. There are times where I am kind of frustrated with Cadsuane when she exhibits being a fool.
Too much pride.
When she exhibits, and this is something I think Sanderson said this in the Stormlight Archive. This is not a spoiler. This is just something that quote from there that I found that really resonated with me, and that was the definition of a fool as being somebody who ignores facts in lieu of desired results. And I think Cadsuane definitely is guilty of this. But to answer the question for this week, I've already answered whether I like her or not last week, and I expanded upon that just now a little bit. But as far as whether or not she is a strong character, I think it is. One cannot argue anything otherwise. Cadsuane is such a stolid, dependable touchstone as a character who remains unchanging, and who honestly does have something very valuable that we see to teach Rand al'Thor, to teach the Ashaman, more on Rand's front, of course. Somebody who is as strong of will, somebody who commands so much presence, and of course, that's something I touched on last week, somebody with whom others have so much regard for. I mean, there's one point where I laughed earlier with Min, when Min said something along the lines of, I think she described she described Cadsuane and said that one of the other Aes Sedai described her as something akin to the Creator's sister, or spoke of her as if she was the Creator's sister. And I went, it's so cool to see how everybody just immediately treads so lightly around Cadsuane, and how she just has this legendary strength, not only of will, but of simply the one power too. I mean, she's really, really strong, right?
It's also to Cadsuane's credit how she constructs her retinue. These Aes Sedai that she's gathered around her are among the most competent at what they do, even if they're not necessarily the strongest. And like, for instance, Samitsu, I love her as an Aes Sedai, by the way. She's one of my favorite Aes Sedai. And I also, sort of off topic, I love the scene where Damer Flynn heals Rand, and Samitsu is like, "What did you just do?" And she's like, "I will do anything. I will bear your children.
Yep.
You need to tell me what you just did." Like,
it was pretty cool to see.
So she drops her fear immediately. She's just like, "I don't care anymore that you're an Ashaman. Like, this is my point of life."
She's a yellow. She's a yellow, but she has a very brown mentality about it.
But she's also very prideful in the fact that, as Cadsuane, confirms, or at least as Cadsuane demands, she is one of the most, if not the most talented healer currently alive. I think Cadsuane says there is nobody alive better than she is.
To the extent of Cadsuane's knowledge.
Yes. Yeah.
Because Cadsuane doesn't know about Nynaeve yet.
But still, I mean, there's also that one kinswoman who's also super, super good. What is her name?
Yes.
At healing?
Healing. It also starts with an S.
No, because Sumiko is the one who's super good at shielding.
No, there's one at healing.
There's one at healing, yeah.
Oh wait, no, it is at Sumiko.
I know it also started with an S.
Barrowin is the one who's good at shielding. Okay.
Barrowin, is she,
I was going to grab my book.
Is she also the one that discovered the sideways traveling for the gateways so they could look down on the battlefield?
No, she's not strong enough.
She can only do shielding.
Oh, okay. Got you.
Yeah.
Still, I knew it also started with an S because I made that mental note when I read it. I was like, oh.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the next listener question we have?
Let's see here. From Mark Warren. I can't remember if this is more in earlier part of the book or in the part you'll be discussing, but I love the Black Aja Hunters subplot that Elida accidentally starts with Ciane, who enlists Pivara. I've seen some people who find it boring or even pointless since Farron's list eventually supersedes anything that they've done, but I still enjoy it every read. So, what do you think about that?
I love it. So I'm glad this question came up, because it gives me a chance to gush. Ciane is amazing, and I love her. She is probably my favorite Aes Sedai, and I think she got a really bad rap where she just, she set all this in motion and then just got completely swept under the rug by the rest of, the Aja, or the sitters who come in and help them.
What about Pivara?
I like Pivara a lot, too.
Pivara's cool.
But Cian, especially, like, she's just so genuine and so nice, and like she's just like the antithesis of so many of the worst Aes Sedai, that it's great to meet an Aes Sedai who's like that.
Cian is a white, yes?
She is a white.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, I love that whole storyline, though. I'm a huge fan.
I like that we actually get somebody that strong out of the white Aja, too, because I think they're honestly underrated.
Yeah, because it's so easy to think of, like, you know, when you consider the Ajas in abstract, and you're like, all right, who's the first Aes Sedai that comes to mind from the white Aja? Most people are going to say Alviarin.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, and she's not even white, and so she gives the white Aja a bad rap. But I actually am a big fan of Cian and Serene, the white who swears to Rand. So, you know, like, I'm glad that we got to see some legitimately useful whites in the series.
Damn yeah. Damn right.
And a good red.
And a good red. There's a couple of good reds. Sylviana's great. Tarna's great. Pavara. You know. Sutama's okay.
I wasn't a huge fan of Tarna, but I didn't hate her either.
I like Tarna. She's like the best kind of red, in my opinion.
Yeah. The one who
like,
takes literally nonsense
to, like,
from
the core
nowhere.
of
She's
what
just sort of badass.
Like, she stays true to what the core of the red Aja is demonstrated as.
Yeah.
Like she's not into guys at all. Like,
Yeah.
she's not a, you know, she's not thrilled having to work with men.
I loved her whole.
But she's not obnoxious about it. You know, like, she's not evil about it the way some others. You know.
Yeah.
So. But we're getting off track from that question. Rob, what do you think about the Black Aja Hunters subplot?
You know, I think I fall sort of guilty of exactly what you're saying here. How it kind of gets swept under the rug in favor of Cad Swain's ultimate, you know, huge revealing list and her life's work and what she's been doing. Oh my God, yeah, Varen. I just said Cad Swain, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Varen, obviously Varen. Serene, Cian, especially Cian, as characters of the white, I did find them to be refreshing. I found them to be pretty original. I was glad that we got some representation out of that Aja. But as far as the subplot goes, you know, honestly, it kind of bores me a little bit, and I feel a little guilty saying that, because I understand that a lot of people get a lot of interest out of this, and that as you two have been saying, especially you, Drew, it's something that really deserves a lot of recognition. But
well, yeah,
I don't know.
Especially because it serves as like a backbone that drives together a couple other plot lines, because it brings in the ferrets who were sent to the tower from Saladar.
Yeah.
And it lays the foundation for this sort of coalition among the Ajas, working against what Alviarin sets in motion in this book when she kind of blackmails Elida and starts telling Elida to issue these orders that will specifically splinter the Ajas apart.
This is something that Mark had said, the listener. He had said that, ironically, it's one of the only things that Elida sets in motion that has a successful outcome. And I do kind of enjoy how almost accidental everything was in how this plotline played out.
Because the whole point of it initially was to, like, get Alviarin in trouble, to, like, undercover Alviarin's wrongdoings, and Cian totally misinterprets it as like, search out the Black Aja, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay,
go ahead.
I gotta say, it's not useless. They capture Black Sisters.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even though the list is going to reveal them later, half of those women escape anyways. Mm-hmm. This is not a pointless act. Like, they could have gotten quite a few more had things gone on differently.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it was a big deal.
Yeah. And I would say that... sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't see it as boring, because... I don't know. It's just not, the whole spy thing. It's you know, they're risking their lives. They're trying to find people in different lies. It's fun. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. I know. I definitely am entertained by what it accomplished. I mean, even when Egwene is later in the tower and she comes across the society, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we've been doing this the whole time," and Egwene seeing that through Egwene's eyes, it was entertaining. Like, I will say, boring might have been the wrong word, but this, as and perhaps my opinion is still stained from my first opinions as a teenager reading this, when I didn't have the patience for all of these intricate politics, and I just wanted to get back to Rand, and I wanted to get back to Matt, and I wanted to get back to Perrin. I don't know. I need to look at these in a slightly different light, I suppose. I need to find more enjoyment out of them, because up to this point, it's been like, oh yeah, okay, this is entertaining, it's well written, but how much does it really affect the whole story overall? I have this looming thing of Varen's ultimate revelation, and to me, it just kind of feels ultimately like it went nowhere, and it was entertaining, but it didn't accomplish much for the central plot in terms of progression and going forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what's next on the question list?
Joy Kristen Allen. I've heard some people say this is where the slog starts. I don't personally agree, but what do you think? And why could you think it'd be seen that way?
Oh, well, I certainly don't think the slog starts here. I think A Crown of Swords is completely action-packed. This is a great book. I feel like the only reason people might see the slog starting here is because this is one of the first books where we don't have like the conclusion of it does end like a major plot line, and we see a Forsaken killed and all of this stuff, but it's very fast. And like you were kind of complaining about that, we don't see Samael go down on screen, and so I could see some people complain that like, oh, it's not as satisfying. But I really don't understand the complaint of like slogging in this book, because this is very fast paced.
Yeah. I definitely saw this as part of the slog when I was younger. I'm going to be saying this again and again. What I've grown to appreciate as a reader as I've gotten older is very, very different from what I was looking for and craving as a teenager. I was bored with this book for the vast majority of it on my first read, and my second read, and my third read. Maturing as a reader, I have come to appreciate it in many, many other ways, and honestly, I think this is, on my mental list of the best Wheel of Time books, I think this is 4th place on my list. Like, I love this book. I think both Lord of Chaos and The Shadow Rising and A Memory of Light are all better than it, but I don't know if any of the other ones really kind of stack up, honestly. This book is awesome. Because it bored me as a teenager doesn't mean that it's any worse. And honestly, I have come to see why, as a teenager, I needed to grow up a little bit. Anybody who honestly thinks there is a huge slog in here doesn't mean that they're immature. They might have different interests. They might be looking for something else. But I have since come to change what I think. I used to say that it started here, but I no longer say that. I think, honestly, the only down part of the series that could be argued is Book 10.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just, it
Lauren,
depends what
think?
you're looking for. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. Okay, so what's next?
Let's see here. So I keep not closing, but minimizing that window. Oh, hey, another one from Christian Hayden. The fog that shows up while Rand is dueling Tormund.
Yes.
Drew, I know you've been just chomping at the bit to get at this. Most people seem to believe it's a bubble of evil. I always thought it was too similar in characteristic to Mashadar, not to mention Fane seems at home with it. I always took this to be one of Fane's tricks. Thoughts on this? Could it in any way be both? A bubble of evil twisted by Fane's presence.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of tackle this in its entirety. So the reason a lot of people will argue one way or another on this is like, because we see Fane using, obviously we see Mashadar, it's a fog-like, substance that has like tendrils and tentacles that it sends out at people, and we see Fane later in the series manifesting this fog around him. And we know that Fane has these powers because he uses them to, like, for instance, take down the Murdral in the Great Hunt and set the trap in the village in the Great Hunt and stuff like that. However, there's a very simple answer to this question, and that is, it is a bubble of evil, the glossary of the Path of Daggers under David Hanlon's entry outright says it is a bubble of evil. So, there's really no argument there.
Yeah, setting it down in stone.
Yeah, but I want to dig into that a little more, and for like why it can't be Fane doing this, and it's two main reasons. One, Mashadar. Anytime we see Mashadar in Shadar Logoth or Fane, manifesting this fog around him, it kills on touch. It kills horribly. This fog does not kill on touch because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people running around inside it. And it kills by, like, actually physically grabbing people and, like, tearing them apart, which is not how Mashadar works at all. Secondly, Fane only manifests Mashadar around himself after Shadar Logoth is destroyed, when Rand cleanses the taint.
Oh, okay.
So,
interesting.
and this
I
is
hadn't considered
this
that
is of
second.
course Shadar Logoth still exists. So,
Interesting. I didn't consider that second part. But, I can't argue. Honestly, nobody can argue with what Drew just said because it's literally listed in the glossary of A Path of Daggers, you said, yeah?
yeah, Path of Daggers under David Hanlon's entry.
Yeah. Okay. One more. This is from Rashid Kurugli, who's a patron.
What's up, Rashid?
What's up, Rashid? This isn't specific to A Crown of Swords, but can you get pregnant in Tel Aranriad?
So I want to start off by saying, surprisingly, or perhaps not surprisingly, I don't know, depends on what your opinion is of Wheel of Time fans, somebody did ask Robert Jordan this question.
Wow.
And he rafoed
Depends
it.
if you're there in the flesh or if you're there in
Uh,
other
so
ways. Yeah.
he just straight up rafoed it.
Yeah.
And he also made an amusing comment where he said, basically, in his experience, anytime Wheel of Time fans ask him dirty questions like that, he said it always seems to be the ladies asking the questions.
Yeah.
What?
That's what Robert Jordan said. But
Theoryland wise, what would you theorize?
so I would theorize that no, you can't get pregnant. I'm gonna get into like a nitty gritty weirdness here, but like I feel like oh man, I don't know.
No,
Maybe you
listen.
can.
I would think I could tackle this one really quickly. Check this out. All right.
All right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
If you're there in the flesh, both of you, you're there in the flesh. You have flesh on flesh contact.
Yes.
You
Oh
can
well,
get pregnant.
definitely, yeah.
If
Yes.
you're
That-
there,
but I don't think that's the
in-
question.
Simply in soul, then no, you can't because there has been no transference of sperm to egg. Simple as that. You're just there metaphysically, right? Like,
So that's what I was gonna say too. Is that there's no like your body can impact somebody else's body in Teleronriad. Like, when you wake up, you can have like
yeah, you can have
scars and things like that.
Yeah, that's like nightmare.
But you
material,
could
right?
maybe make an argument that like once the sperm leaves the body, it's no longer part of your body and it just becomes like a Teleronriad metaphysical thing.
jizzing
but
into
then
Teleronriad.
But then I realized that
if we can make that
Nynaeve,
the episode title. Sorry, go ahead.
well,
Continue.
But then I realized that Nynaeve makes Teleronriad forkroot tea and it impacts Moghedian.
Oh shit!
So I think you could. I think you could get pregnant.
I bet
That's
if
nuts.
you listen, if you were to get pregnant that way, I bet your offspring would be like a messiah that is able to change both worlds. More,
how you get,
more dramatically than Randy even is when he's like Zen Rand.
Yeah.
I bet that
Oh,
would be.
man.
You
Well,
would just
hold
get
on,
the
hold
creator.
on.
That's how the creator was born. Ladies and gentlemen, we just figured it out here on the Inking Out Loud podcast.
Wait. So we have the Age of Legends where they all have like trainer rings and they can do all kinds of stuff. Wouldn't they have already done this?
That's true. That's
I
true.
mean, probably.
They probably did.
Would they already have done this? I like the double entendre there.
Yeah.
I feel like they would have an answer.
The Age of Legends.
And I
probably
feel
had
like
a
I'm
better
coming
answer
down
than
on
we
the
did.
side of yes, you can get pregnant in Teleronriad.
I think I am
but
also
you
coming
cannot
to the
get
side of
pregnant
yes,
in the Gap of Infinity.
but it would not
Right,
be
right.
It would not be a standard pregnancy. There would be something special about that child. I honestly think it would change. It would be something insane and something really cool.
Oh man.
So,
Okay, well,
yeah.
do we... of course, we have to do our 3 favorite scenes.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So we do
our
have
3
more
favorite
that we
scenes.
need to do.
I have a few miscellaneous thoughts I want to get out of the way. I can make those really fast.
Okay,
though.
yeah, let's do just some concluding thoughts, and then we'll do 3 favorite scenes.
Okay, so a while back I was talking with our group chat, Drew, which for those who don't know, it consists of our Cosmere Theories Facebook, the group admins. And shout out guys, what's up? And we've been friends for a few years now. And there's one day, I don't remember the context, but you guys were surprised that I had never heard of grits, which is apparently a pretty common thing down there in parts of the States as a food, or maybe a breakfast food, from my understanding. I don't know. The reason I bring this up, though, is because I could swear that we got a glimpse of grits in Enid's kitchen in Abu Dar. And this is just an observation I made. I had no idea what it was at the time, but now I have my suspicions, now that you guys have enlightened me on this fascinating food. So...
Yeah, I do think so.
Okay, so a few episodes back, also, I wondered if there's anything else that hawkers can do in fantasy books besides crying their wares. As it turns out, there is something they can do besides that. In chapter 24, apparently a hawker can, and I quote, swallow their cry in mid-shout. Though that might only be because they were facing down a grumpy Nynaeve. I will have to investigate to see if this is something that other hawkers are capable of. I will follow up again in the future.
Okay.
The revelation that Suroth's Dakoval is Amathera. That reveal in that chapter, and that whole chapter from Morghase's point of view, by the way, awesome. That chalice slipping from like Morghase's hand and shattering on the floor. I demand that they hit this scene in the show, because they totally give a damn about what I think. And that scene goes all hushed, and the cup shatters on the floor in slow motion. I can see that totally panning out. It would be chills.
Yeah. Let me just go back and check. Was Leandrin not in that scene too?
Leandrin? In the
Was
scene
she not?
Hold on a
She's
second.
not mentioned. She might be in the background.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's in the background. All right. Let's see. I'm trying to see if there was a description, because she had the 2 pairs of, Suldam Damane with her.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Damn it, we might have to follow this one up.
So one of them is... Oh, yeah. Pura. Yep.
Pura.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
Leandrin.
okay.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Well, it's
I thought that was that other Aes Sedai from Tomon Head.
No.
Oh shit, though. Wasn't there one on
The
Tomon
one
Head
that
called
Egwene.
Pura?
The one that Egwene met.
No.
is not
She had a
Leandrin.
different name.
We'll have
She
to
said,
follow this up
remember
afterwards.
me. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I remember that exact scene that you're talking about, Lauren. I think you're right. Honestly, I think you're right. But we'll follow this up later. I only have one.
I am like 99.9% certain that later on, when we see Suroth interacting with Leandrin, she calls her Pura as well.
So I'm only 80% certain that Pura was already in Falma. Anyway, my last miscellaneous point that I wanted to point out here is that we are officially at this point, and it doesn't feel like it. We've been doing this for so long now. We are now officially at the halfway point of the entire series.
Oh man.
Yeah, we are.
We are halfway done, ladies and gentlemen. There are still 7 books to go.
Okay, I am wrong. It is Rima who is Pura.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
What does she call? What does she call Leandrin?
Ka-ching!
Because I know she has a.
Sully is later, right? That's what Egwene was?
Sorry.
No,
it's
Thule
Falma.
was
Why
it?
did I say
Falman
Falma?
had, yeah.
Falma's on Tomon Head.
Yeah, Falma's on
I know,
Tomon Head.
but
You're right.
I should be more specific.
Yeah, it's okay. We knew what you meant. It still made sense too. Sully, or is it Thule? Egwene was the one that was named after the
yeah.
kitten.
Egwene is too.
But what was Elida later when she was in the custody of the Shan-Chan?
Oh my gosh.
Damn it!
Oh, I do not
Could have
remember
sworn
her
that was
name.
Pura. Holy crap! We're gonna have a long episode today, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we are.
I'm a little baked.
But yeah, so let's do our 3 favorite scenes while we're still at a still under 2 hours.
Yeah, sure. I only wrote down 2, and that was because I was hurriedly trying to put them together as I wrote this. Or as I did this podcast, I should say. So first and foremost, obviously goes the entire procession and their visit to the Sea Folk, Rand visiting them and making the bargain and leaving the Aes Sedai behind. That whole power play, everything leading up to it and everything afterwards. I feel like it's kind of a cheap option because it's like 2 chapters of a sequence I'm talking about here. But this whole day that Rand had there was just awesome. And by the way, something I forgot to mention earlier. Think about the day that Darlin had. Just think about that day for a second there.
Oh my God.
He started there at the Rebel camp with Caroline de Modred and Toram Ryatin and Fane, who, by the way, Rand and Fane came face to face there kind of briefly in the tent. That was crazy. But by the end of the day, he's literally walking through a bubble of evil that's like acting like Mashadar and ripping people's faces off, and he's carrying the half like comatose, actually the fully comatose, bleeding out form of the Dragon Reborn, so that he can be healed. Like, think about that day that Darlin had there. Sorry,
Right,
I just
yeah.
dropped my glasses, I think it was. What was it? No, that's my phone. But, yeah, so Rand invading Ilion. Obviously, his whole showdown there. That moment where he just proclaims himself in the square, and he has, like, lightning, or was it fire shooting out of his hands, and he says, "I am the Dragon Reborn!" And he has lightning going across the sky. I want to see that on a poster, a movie poster. I so badly need that. Or like a metal album cover art or something like that. That is such an awesome scene. Or just image to have in my head. And now I have to choose a random one here. Of everything that happened in the book. Oh, shit. How could I not think of this? Obviously, with no question, The Butcher's Yard, Chapter 2.
Yeah, I was.
And the way it
waiting for
begins.
you to
Oh my
bring
God! I'm glad I saved that for last because that is my number one as well. That might be one of my favorite series scenes, if not my favorite scene in the entire series. The Butcher's Yard. If you just want to hear my opinion on it, go back to the previous episode and listen to what I had to say about it. I'm not going to beat it into the ground again. That is a perfect scene.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So,
Lauren, what about you? Your 3 favorite scenes?
Jeez. Okay. Obviously, Nynaeve getting rescued. I love that scene.
Okay.
And when she's just a disaster on the boat, and she turns
she's so
around,
mortified.
and so she just starts like channeling the water off of her. Oh, I really like that scene. Let's see. There's a lot of vindication with that scene with the kinswoman and Elaine coming back and taking off her mask and being like, "Hey,
Yeah.
guess who's running the show?" Let me think. A third one. Oh, I don't know. There are some great ones with Matt in this book. Like, I love him with, like, in The Wandering Woman. I think his relationship with a lot of those characters is really fun, and it matures there, like with Olver. Yeah.
Good
I
stuff,
don't know. I don't know if I would pick those two if I had more time to think, but yeah.
Okay, so my 3 favorite scenes, in chronological order. First is Rand's return to Cairhien and deposing Queen Colavir,
my God. I forgot about
breaking the crown and reforging it.
Yeah.
I love that scene. Second would be Rand's duel with Toram Ryatin and the subsequent flight through the Bubble of Evil.
Chef's
And
kiss.
yeah, and third is Matt versus the Golem. It's just too great. The
that's
ancillary
so
events around that scene with Nalisian's death, heartbreaking. But just in general, it's a great bit of writing on Robert Jordan's part where he manages to kind of pack in the ups and downs of like death, sort of like red shirt death, where like, they're just people you don't really know, these like random kin, that you just met. And then Nalisian dying right there, and then like Vannon gets hurt, and you're like, oh no, not Vannon, and then you're seeing how formidable the Golem is, and then only by, of course, luck does Matt manage to chase it off. So,
Yeah, something I
I loved that.
totally forgot to mention as we were discussing these earlier, but that scene was so terrifying and so horrifying. That was, I think, the scariest in terms of just sheer horror, scariest scene in this entire series. Like, everything that was happening leading up to that scene and the atmosphere that Jordan instilled on that was just, it was superb. It gave me chills as a teenager, and it was nightmare fuel. That golem is a spooky creature, man.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times did Matt tell them, you are not invulnerable? And here we go. Like, we have this creature that you can affect with the power. So,
Of
good
all
luck.
the things in the Wheel of Time that I would not want to face, up there is a goddamn golem.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, that sounds like a pretty good spot to take us into the final draft.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. I can start if you guys would like.
Go for it.
So this here that I brought to the table today is a raspberry wheat ale. It's called Pinky Brewster. Because obviously I assume because of the raspberry. It's a 5.5% ABV. I really haven't been a huge, I don't know, fan of wheat ales in the past. I've only had a couple. They did not impress me at all. This one I was not expecting to impress me at all. It was modestly priced, but honestly, it poured very dark. It was actually it was kind of plain, but not in a bad way. It was very, very simple, but refreshing. The raspberry was much lighter than I was expecting it to be. I was expecting it to be overpowering, as a lot of flavored wheat ales, in my experience, have been. The raspberry was so subtle you almost didn't know it was there. It was actually really, really nice. But
nice.
As I mentioned earlier, Drew, while you were talking about Samael,
Yeah.
yeah, and the entire reason that Jordan chose to perhaps end him off screen was because of his personality. This here is from a brewing company called Refined Fool.
Huh.
And that is my ode there to Samael.
Oh,
The
that's
Fool.
that's really funny because so the beer is called Pinky Brewster. I immediately thought of Punky Brewster.
Oh, I hadn't considered that. That was not planned, everybody. I swear to God. I understand.
Nice.
Did not consider that. But yeah, honestly, that was an amazing raspberry wheat ale. Honestly, I'm probably going to buy it again in the future. It was very simple, not obnoxious. Very well priced.
Nice.
I'll drink it again. Yeah.
Awesome. Lauren, what are you drinking?
All right, so I am drinking Local's Stash. Obviously referring to the stash of Angreal, Sangreal, Terangreal that we get.
Oh, or the stasis
But
box
is-
even.
Yep. It is out of Crazy Mountain Brewing, which is up in Edwards, Colorado. And it's a blueberry vanilla petite sour. 5% ABV. And it's got an SRM of 7. And I won't say the IBU because that's a pointless stat.
What the hell is that?
But it was... It's,
International Bittering Unit. It became in vogue during the peak of IPA hype, where these breweries were trying to out bitter each other with triple and quadruple IPAs.
But it doesn't mean anything because there are 5 types of bitter, and not everybody can taste all 5.
Okay, so would you say it's
it doesn't
Scoville,
mean anything.
like Scoville for spice, when it really doesn't mean anything because it's kind of arbitrarily defined? It's
Sorta, yeah.
I would say less than that even.
Wow.
It is a pointless number, but we still put it on everything.
Still learning something new on every single episode of the Inking Out Loud podcast.
But anyways, it's a delicious sour from the mountains.
You said blueberry vanilla sour?
Yeah,
Damn.
it's really good.
That sounds fancy.
It's
Yeah, I
pretty
like
fancy.
Cool.
You need to come down here and do a brew tour.
A brew tour. That sounds like such a hangover. I love the idea. Let's do it. It's gonna have to
15
happen.
brewery tours.
Oh my god.
We have something like 352 in this state.
Breweries.
Oh my god. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
We live in the mecca of craft beer.
The mecca of the hangover. It sounds like fun, dude. We're gonna do that for sure. All of us.
Yeah. So, what I am drinking today is something pretty special.
Oh?
This is an Imperial Stout from Cerebral Brewing Company in Denver, Colorado. And Cerebral is they're one of the best breweries in the state, and especially when it comes to stouts, they are just on top of the world. There is a big brew festival and kind of competition called Festival of Barrel Aged Brews that happens every year, and another beer from Cerebral, not the one I'm drinking right now, just won gold at that. And this is like, a national competition. But this one, so yeah, it's an imperial stout brewed with cacao, nibs, coconut, and cinnamon. It is 10.2%. It's very good. I mean, tons of coconut in this. I don't get a whole lot of cinnamon, but it's a lot of coconut, nice, like kind of bitter dark chocolate flavor, but drinks pretty easily for such a kind of, high ABV, heavy body stout. But this beer is what Matt needed, and what a real healthy BDSM relationship would have, and that is safe word.
Oh, fuck off.
And I wish you had your camera on, because the label of this thing is pink, has a couple of candles, and pink fluffy handcuffs.
You gotta be shitting me. You have to be shitting me right now, Andrew McCaffrey. What the fuck? I'm speechless. I don't have... I can't brain. Wow. I don't understand how you continue to do this.
Yeah, that one turned out pretty well.
That was nice. It's pink of all things, and it has handcuffs. Safe
Yep.
word. I like it. I like it.
Yep.
I don't like it,
I mean,
but I really like
I hate it, but I like it.
I like it.
Right?
I love how much I hate it.
Yeah, so that said, this has been episode 47 of the Inking Out Loud podcast. Next up, Lauren and I are going to be doing an episode on our own once again, this time covering Iron Fist by Aaron Alston, the sequel to Wraith Squadron. If you are appreciating what we're doing on this, check us out on Patreon. That is patreon.com/inkingoutloud. We got all kinds of fun benefits. We got exclusive short episodes. You can get early access to episodes. We have a monthly newsletter. So yeah, check us out there. That is, once again, patreon.com/inkingoutloud. As always, I am your host, Drew McCaffrey. With me is my co-host, Rob Santos.
Yep.
And our special guest, Lauren McCaffrey.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Lauren.
Yeah, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.